Experiment number 2 is in process. Says I'm live. Oh goodness. Okay. Oh, I see myself. All right, well, I am here. I hope that all of you that expressed interest in coming to this part 2 of Caregiving for Dementia have found your way here. I see a couple people joining. Yay! I would love it if we could test the comments. So if you have joined and you could just say, hello, I'm here, maybe say what state you're from or what your favorite ice cream is, anything so we can just see if it's working. So this is part 2 of Caregiving for Dementia. So if you missed part 1, that was last Sunday, and that was kind of the introduction, and we talked about there might be good here. So it outlines what I'm going to be covering in these 7 sessions, as well as kind of starts off with a little note of encouragement and some positive things that I actually experienced from my caregiving with my mom who had dementia. So I like to start with that. And what we are going to do today, this is part 2 right now, and then I will do another one actually today at 5 o'clock Eastern. So I'm doing 2 different ones. So this one, we're focusing on organization, and just like what are some tricks that we found that helped us simplify our files, our home, our medical team, our communications, anything that was around kind of organization, like how can we organize things to make it better. So that is what we're covering today. And I don't see comments, which is really frustrating. Oh dear. Okay, well, I will keep trying. This is a little bit of an experiment, and I know there's so many different technologies, so I hope you bear with me. All right, so what I have done is for organizing is I kind of outlined the different categories, kind of like the main categories that we found, were struggles for us. And then within each category, I kind of have different levels of organization. So if you are new to being a caregiver, if you have had a recent diagnosis, or if you are even just maybe suspecting that you might have a loved one with dementia and you're just starting to learn about it, then I would say start with some of these simple organization tips that I have. The other ones that are for more advanced care, like those will, obviously you don't need to worry about those yet. But I do have some of those things that I think are really helpful as you get further down the line. Some things that we did and some things that I've learned from other people that I'm like, oh, darn it, I wish I had known that. So, so that's what we will cover. And so the first one that I have is pretty basic, but honestly, I think it's a sanity saver. This is when you kind of first find out you have a diagnosis, or if you are suspecting that you do, and you're starting to gather information. And it can be really overwhelming at that point because there are so many sources of information. There's no shortage of people who truly want to help, and they all present information in slightly different ways. And you don't know what is going to be most relevant for you, right? But you also don't want to miss something. So you want to try to gather as much information as you can, but you don't want to be overwhelmed. So my solution in this case is to have a box. Literally, I just used a banker's box, and I had a place in my house, and I put that box there, and I would put everything relating to my mom in the box. It's not, I know this is not scientific, this is not advanced, but it was helpful psychologically to know that I had one place where everything was going. And when I wanted to go and search for information, I could go into the box and I could find it. The second step when I was ready was to create a mom binder. And I, of course, saying I'm mom binder because it was my mom that we were caring for, but this could be your binder, your loved one's binder. And so the binder was where I kind of took things from the box and I would organize them a little bit. So I would kind of have my categories. I would have the medical care team. I would have medicines that she was currently taking. I would have, key documents in the binder. So, if I needed to call up anything, like insurance information, names of doctors, will, key contacts in the family, things like that. So that was kind of the second step. And that was just, again, something I didn't need every day, but this binder was like, I would take it with me to a doctor's appointment, or I would go to grab it if I was having to handle a call on something, then I would go to the binder and take notes in the binder. Then the third thing that I did is just to have a little kind of grab and go book. So this was like a grab and go journal. I actually used something like this, just because I liked that it was a little bit smaller and it could fit into my bag, but it was also sturdy and it has this little strap. So I could, kind of protect it. It could go through a little bit more hardship and last a little longer. So, and in here, like this book is, this one's kind of filled up. Let me show you one that's not filled up. This one, it has blank pages, so it doesn't have anything in it at all. It's called a bullet journal, and so you can just use it, fill it in any way you like. And the way I would do it is just literally take notes. If I was going to a meeting, or if I had thoughts that day, or if mom had something happen, I would just date it and put it in. And you can just kind of have a table of contents at the front if you want to try to find things quickly. People use this in all different ways. We won't go into all of that yet, but people can use it. You can use a spiral notebook. You could have, something fancier. But the main thing was just to have something that you can kind of start to keep with you at all times. Because one thing that happens with dementia is that you never know when you're going to need a piece of information or when something's going to happen. Maybe you'll be in your car, maybe you'll be at work, maybe you'll be home, maybe you'll be out. Like you don't know. And it's just really helpful to have something, like even if I didn't have my notebook with me at the time and I had to rush to help my mom, if I had this, I at least had kind of a more recent record of what had been going on with her. One of the things I would also say that happens with dementia is that it becomes a little bit of a detective novel, So something that are happening today may not seem important, but then something happens 2 days from now and you're like, oh, that's why that was happening 2 days ago. And so being able to have a record is really helpful. And also, our brains are getting tired as well and taxed. So losing that, having that ability, to be supported by something else and have a record somewhere else is really helpful. And then the last thing I just wanted to say about paperwork is that to make sure to keep the paper. And again, that's why the box comes in handy, because I know in this day and age, we would like to be able to move everything to electronic, and we'd like to be able to kind of throw away papers that we are done with and not have papers cluttering up our houses. But I would say I've heard a lot of stories where people have been grateful that they had the paper. Sometimes it's a matter of insurance. Sometimes it's just a matter of remembering something. But I think, while we're going through the process, my recommendation is to keep the paper. And, maybe again, like maybe you're super, super awesome with the technology and you found tools that work for you. Then you can ignore me. But I think that if you want to, in the interest of caution, I would say keep the paper until you know for sure. So I am just going to do one little quick check-in because I'm a little concerned. So we are at 3:10, and I'm just going to take one moment, just a little break here, and I'm just going to check I'm going to do a technology check. So pardon me. I'm going to close this down. Well, there's so many different places that okay. Let's just keep going. So the next, and what I'm doing today too is I'm kind of trying to hit on things that I found were most helpful. So of course there's many solutions out there. I don't want to bog you down with like many, many, many things. So these were my broad categories, and then within each category, these are a couple of my favorite tips. That's kind of the focus. So next is the category of medicine and records. So in here I have this book that this is called A Health Minder, and I really loved this when I found it. I found it really helpful, again, just because it saved me some time and it saved me some brain power. There are different versions of this one, and I just got this on Amazon, but basically I will show you what it looks like. So it's nice because it doesn't have a date every day, so you enter today's date. So if you want to enter something because something happened or you want to track something, you enter that date, and then it has these categories, so it kind of helps trigger you. So you don't have to write everything out. You can just say, oh yeah, here we were, mom's eyes were hurting, or here's a little drawing of the body, and you can just put an X, like, oh yeah, she was complaining about the lower back, so you can just draw an arrow there. It also does have here a list of the medicines and vitamins and herbs, which I think is nice. And so again, you can make a note, like if something was changed. It's always handy because I had a hard time tracking that. Like, what if there's a change? How do I go back? So this was a way I could just keep it in here. There was a change, and I would mark it in here. So this was handy. And this, again, could be kept with my like grab and go book. So I would have this and this one would kind of be the medical shortcut. And here I might write out my prose and write words or thoughts or reflections or more of a diary. So those were kind of my two books. Then the second thing, there's something that I learned about here in North Carolina, but I've looked into it, and they do have it everywhere, and it's called the Vial of Life. And so the Vial of Life is just literally a baggie, or it could be a pillbox that you put essential documents in and put in your freezer, because hopefully that is a safe place for it. And then on your freezer door, you just put a sign that says Vial of Life, so that if an emergency worker comes to your home, they will know to look into the freezer to grab that vial or that baggie or whatever, however you've stored it, they will look for it in your freezer and they will grab it. And that way, if you have special instructions for your loved one, or if you have a medicine list, or if you have a living will, a DNR, do not resuscitate instructions, any of those things can be in the vial of life. So I just wanted to take a moment and show you, because I just found this today and I thought it would be helpful. So, and I can do this. It's my caregiving agenda here. What I'm trying to show you is my desktop. Okay, here we go. Oh, no, I'm back. All right, here we are. Now we go to new scene. Oh, for crying out loud. There's a little delay, so I can't tell if it's actually working. So this is hilarious. Just seeing the desktop. I swear that I did this before this meeting now. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, well, there it is. Ah, wow, okay. So what I can show you is it's just a form. This is the form that they provide. This is free and you can download it at vialoflife.com and print it out, and you can just fill this out and then you put it in like a baggie and you put it in the freezer. And then you can add things to it, so you don't have to be limited by this, but this is the place to start. And then here they have the instructions on how to set it up. Fill it in, put it in a plastic bag, and put it in the fridge. And if you want to get like their decal, which has the red cross symbol on it, you can order one and they will send you for free up to 10. So, okay, we're going to go back to the regular view now. Awesome. Okay, so then the last suggestion for medicine and records is actually one of my favorites. I don't know why more people don't do this, but I think you'll love it. So I call it the hospital bag. I know that people don't like to think about going to the hospital, but the likelihood is that at some point there will be a hospital visit. And we don't know when, and we don't know why, and we don't know how severe it will be, but the likelihood is that there will be a moment when something will happen and it will be unexpected and unscheduled, and we will have to go to the hospital. So just like when we are pregnant and we are don't know when we are going to have a baby, we have a bag that's there that's ready by the door. My suggestion is to have a similar bag that's called a hospital bag that is ready by the door when you might have to take your loved one to the hospital. So I call that a hospital bag, and I do have a list of things that I would put in it, which I can send to you. It's pretty straightforward. It's your important documents and some clothes and some comfort items. And then, anything that would be special in some time away from home. So if that might be music or some photographs, some slippers, blanket, pillow, whatever. You can have a list of those things. Maybe they're using them during regular life, so they don't want to keep it in the bag all the time. But just have the bag there, put copies of the important documents in there so you have them ready to go, and then a contact list, things like that, and then a list of kind of last minute, items that you can pull from the house quickly and make sure they get in the bag to help your loved one stay comfortable. Cool. So that's medicine and records. And I would love to hear your suggestions. So if you're watching this live or if you're watching it recorded version, please enter any comments you have below. Like, have you heard of these things? Have you used these things? Do you have a better idea? Please let me know. I mean, that's what we're here for, is to learn from each other. I definitely keep learning, even though I'm no longer a caregiver. I keep learning things. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I'd had that. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to take a note of that and bring it into my class. So love to hear your ideas. Okay, so my third category is what I call care partners. So this was, not only my family, so how do we simplify for ourselves our communication and, our planning time, but also how do we coordinate with all of the people that are working with us. So, there's the medical team there. In our case, we had an assisted living facility. And then as my mom progressed, we actually had to bring care in on top of the assisted living care facility. So we had hired caregivers as well. So we had all of our family, and then we had the facility, and then we had the caregivers. And that was just a lot going on. So one of the things that I found really helpful was to create an About Me book. So this was just a book that had a picture of my mom on the front, and then inside would have, information about her family. So it was about me, meaning about my mom, right? It was about my mom. And so the inside would be like, here's a picture of my picture, and it would say, this is Beth, she's the youngest daughter. She lives in Durham, North Carolina. She has a cat named Oscar. And so they would just have like information that whoever was sitting with my mom that day, or whoever was meeting my mom that day that might not know these things, could refer to the book and have a conversation, or could ask my mom, say, oh, who is this in this picture? And they could have something to talk about. And we also put in that book, anything that was specific about my mom's health, about her routine, about kind of keywords, things that maybe don't mention those things or so much, or, if you need to distract or redirect mom, here's some good things that really do help with that. So my mom was an artist, and she had some really beautiful, we had some books of her art. And so we would take that with us when we went to the hospital. And it was always great to be, in a hospital bed with all these nurses or whatever, but have people, be able to see that book on my mom's lap and say, oh, what is that? And my mom would say, sometimes she wouldn't even know, but she would be like, it's this beautiful book of paintings. And she didn't know that she did them, but they did. And they would look at them and ooh and ah, and like, just have this positive reaction and would be able to relate to my mom in a positive way. And then as things are changing, people coming in and out, it's just really helpful for them as well to come into a room and have some kind of reference document that they can open up and learn about a person. So that's an About Me book. And also I would ask, as another side, if I mention something here today and you are really interested in it and you would like to learn more, please put that in the comments as well, because then I will know that, you know, I should do another video about how to create an About Me book or whatever. So then this one was kind of a funny one, but it came out of one of my mom's health crisis moments where she had gone into the hospital and then she came back out and she was in a skilled nursing facility. And all of the change had really disrupted and aggravated her dementia. And so she wasn't sleeping well, and we were just having a really hard time kind of regaining normality. And in the skilled nursing facility, again, there were so many people that were coming in to help, but they were always coming in kind of quickly, and they were different all the time. So, oh, I'm coming in, I'm the physical therapist today, and we're going to work with physical therapy because your mom needs that. Oh, I'm the, you know, I'm the assistant occupational therapist. And, you know, they would come in and they were very wonderful and caring. But from my mother's perspective, it was just overwhelming and chaotic. And we didn't know who the people were half the time, because they were just like, oh, they would come in and they're helping, they're asking questions. And we're like, wait, what? Who are you? Who is this today? And, oh, I'm the occupational therapist. Oh, okay. And what do you do? So, you know, and not just making a list was helpful, you know, to make a list of who was coming in and out, and I would keep that in my journal. But I actually really like color, as you can tell. And so I thought it would be really helpful to have color-coded name tags. So I actually didn't get a chance to try them, but I still think it's a great idea to have a set of color-coded name tags and just have it in my hospital bag. So it would be like yellow for occupational therapist, you know, pink for doctor, and purple for nurse, and blue for physical therapist, and green for nutritionist or for food, or, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. So just having kind of like just a set of kind of basic colors, and then if somebody comes in the room, just give them that name tag, have them clip it on and be like, nurse, you know, in pink or in purple or whatever, or, you know, I'm here to bring you food and it's, you know, green. So that way my mom could just kind of identify, oh, it's a bright color, there's a word there, they're doing something, I can connect with that, and hopefully just have it be a little bit less stressful. And then the last thing that I have on Care Partners is keeping a list of things that have worked for you and for your care partners. So anytime that an activity works for a caregiver, I say, please tell me, tell me what you did that worked. And, you know, send me a picture if she's had a good day or if she's enjoying something, some activity, let me know. So sharing those things. And likewise, I would try to do the same and so I keep a list with my sisters and I, you know. We ended up using a app that's called Trello, Trello. So this might be, you know, for those who like to use technology, this might be something for you. It's free. You can use it. And the reason I liked it is because you can share, and it's kind of like having folders and they're visual. So you have a board is what it's called. And within that board, you can have little, I'm forgetting what they're called, the boards, and then cards, I think. And so in the cards, you can move them from place to place, and anyone could add different ones. So say that you had a board that was like activities for mom, then anybody that was in your group could add comments or add suggestions or add feedback on an activity that worked or didn't work. It's also a great place to just store information too. So like if you have articles that were interesting or that you want to read someday or whatever, you can kind of put them in there. And then when you have a moment when you're waiting in line or, you know, stuck in traffic or whatever, and you want to read something, you could go in there and pull up an article. So that's called Trello, Trello. And then of course I mentioned music, photographs, you know, things like that that are personal items that help with the care partners. Okay, so are there any questions so far? Don't see any. So I'm going to move on to the fourth category, which is the category of a house. Now, I could cover house organization, all day long. I'm not going to do that today, since this is just a short visit. But I do want to hit some of the highlights. So if your loved one is aging in place, and maybe you're even living with them, then these first tips will apply to you. And then if you are thinking about transitioning your loved one in the house, then the next tips will apply for you. So the first ones, if you are staying in the home right now with your loved one and they have dementia, or you're worried that they do have dementia, there is a really great document that's also free, that's through the AARP, and it's called Home Fit, F-I-T. It's all one word, Home Fit, F-I-T. And I will also put the link below this video. You can just click on it and then you can download the document. And what it does is it goes through very nicely, room by room in your house, what to look for to see if you have anything that you would need to change in order to age in place safely. It's really well done. It's pictures and nice, color and big font, and just very clear. And you can just go through room by room and see, if there's anything there that is something you should pay attention to. I know that, we have a Falls Expo coming up here in North Carolina next week. And so there's always a concern around falling, and especially with dementia, you start to lose your balance. So one of the main things they say, and you've probably heard this, but if you haven't, is to remove any rugs. So anything that might move, anything that might catch a toe, or just crumple up, or just make it difficult to move smoothly across the floor. You want to remove those. So it kind of goes safety over decor, unfortunately. And then of course, no sharp edges. And we kind of went through the house and just kind of removed things that were glass that might fall and break, lamps that wouldn't be tied down or that weren't heavy. Having lamps that attach to the wall are super great, as opposed to little light lamps that could be knocked over on the table. Having motion detector lights that plug into the wall, those are great. We definitely had those between my mother's bedroom and her bathroom. So as soon as her feet hit the floor, those lights would come on so that it would light her way to the bathroom when she was still able to do that. And then just any sharp edges of tables or anything like that, either just kind of pad them, like we would actually just cover them with some padding so that the corners weren't sharp, or we would replace them and either take them out of the house or try to replace them with something that was more circular. The reason for the sharp edges is, of course, because their skin is just more sensitive as you're aging in general. And so that's not dementia specific, but we're just trying to reduce risk so that when we're caring for someone with dementia, some of the basic things are covered so that the things that are dementia specific can get more attention. So then the next thing is called colored duct tape. And by the way, I keep looking down at my little cheat sheet here, and I will make this available if you go onto my website, which is BethReeves8keys.com, and then do /caregiving. You can download the agenda for this series and this organizing cheat sheet, and then also the My Map, which I'll be talking about at the 5 o'clock call. So, and I guess I could try and put that up here, but I think I'm just gonna leave that and I'll post it down below. So colored duct tape. Colored duct tape was, is a lifesaver, in my opinion. One of the things that I like to encourage as much as possible is independence. I think that, you know, our loved ones with dementia, just like all of us, like to be independent, and you know, it can be difficult when people are doing things for us all the time, and you know, worried that we're not able to do things for ourselves. So I try to look for ways that I can organize my house, the house, to support independence. You know, so how can I make it simpler for them to do work on their own, right? So if I take the bathroom, for example, I'm sure some of you have had this experience. A lot of things in the bathroom can be mistaken for other things. So if you have dementia, it might be easy to put hand lotion on your toothbrush or put toothpaste on your hair. You know, like it's just, they're all bottles and squeezable and plastic and white, and you know, I can't read that anyway, and it smells good, it smells like it's sweet, maybe it's shampoo, I'll put it on my hair, right? So what I like to do with duct tape is, again, I did color coding, and then I would draw pictures on there sometimes. So I would like do a big smile on the toothpaste, and then I would draw hair on the thing with hair. So I'd cover it with duct tape, so I'm not worried about what's on the bottle anymore. I'm just going to cover it up, have a big bright color, solid color that's easy to see, and then I would have my drawing, and maybe I would have words too. If your loved one is still reading, then I would put, you know, hair or something like that. And again, just to make it simple to help them, hopefully help themselves. So that can be used in any way. It doesn't have to just be the bathroom. You could use it out with the clothing drawer, keeping clothes separated, you know, tasks that are on the desk, you know, whatever you would like. And then the last thing I say about the house is that it is probably a good idea to have one drawer that is a locked drawer and have that key in a special place. You know, again, we don't like to have to keep things locked up, but you know, it's just, they don't mean to make it difficult. They don't mean to get into things that they're not, that, you know, or make, you know, move things around, but somehow things will move around if you're not careful. And especially if they are living into a facility. When my mom was in an assisted living facility, the doors to the rooms didn't lock, and we didn't want them to lock, but that meant that other people on the floor would come in and out of my mother's room, and, you know, we would find all sorts of things in all sorts of places. So most of it was fine, but if there were some things that, you know, you really need to be able to find the diapers when you need them, you know, or, you know, there's the medicine, or there's whatever, like things that you just don't want to go into the wrong place or be used in the wrong way or wasted. So I have to have a locked drawer. Okay, so then the last two categories that I have are kind of special circumstances. So, so this would apply to maybe some people, but not all. But I think that they're really helpful, so I wanted to put them out there. So the first one is travel, and I'm not talking big travel here. I'm just talking like doing a field trip to the shopping mall. You know, like maybe you're going to take your loved one out to buy a shirt. You know, very fun. You know, have a girls' date or whatever. So you have the best intentions, and you're out and you're having lunch and getting ready to go to the store, and your loved one has incontinence. So what I learned from a friend is that she carries a diaper bag, just like we do when we have young ones, with her. And that has snacks in it, it has water, it has something that she can play with her hands, and then it has diaper supplies. So that was, I thought, gosh, that was a really simple thing that I hadn't thought of. She also suggested having like a fuzzy blanket or some kind of fuzzy animal, some kind of comfort item, something that would be recognizable and familiar if a situation arises that was causing agitation. So of course you're familiar, and hopefully you can help provide comfort if there's something that's creating agitation. but sometimes it's nice to have an object as well. So when you're traveling, because you're changing the scene, which can be disorienting and scary, having something that's familiar, additional items, can be really helpful. And then the last thing I say about travel is spend extra time preparing for the travel, meaning set it up with your loved one. So like, you know, if you're going to be going out to lunch and to shopping, you know, keep mentioning it every 10 to 15 minutes for a little while you're like, oh, so yeah, we're going to go shopping. We're going shopping. We're going to look for shirts. We're going to look for a new shirt for you. So like just continue to like reinforce that. So then when the actual comes and we're going out the door because we're going to go get in the car to go to the store to look for a shirt, there's enough repetition that she can follow the logic there. And then I just said to go slow. It's like, I mean, that's kind of a given when it comes with dementia in almost every circumstance. Trying to go fast usually ends in disaster. So give yourself plenty of time, and, you know, don't worry if it's not perfect, and, you know, just kind of allow yourself to go into their timeline rather than trying to stick to yours. And so then the last category that I have is what I call emergency. And this is, again, kind of talking about health crises. And I mentioned already the hospital bag, which we hopefully have, and it's ready and by our door. But I wanted to add a few more things because there were some keys that I think I wish I had known, and we kind of learned along the way. And I think if you can learn them now, then when it happens, you're going to be so far ahead of the game. So the first thing is that, again, this is a huge change. So if you have someone that's had a health crisis and they're going to the hospital, they're already experiencing something is wrong with their body. They're already sick in some way. Maybe they've fallen, maybe they have a UTI, maybe they have an infection or are sick, maybe they've had a mini stroke, right? Like, who knows? So there's already something going on there. And then there's a rush of activity. People are coming into the space, people are moving them out into a new environment, which is also scary. So there's a relationship that can often occur between dementia and delirium because of all of this change, the sickness or the issue that's going on in the body, and then the disruption of the routine, which causes fear and anxiety. So that then manifests as a delirium where the mind can just kind of disconnect, can break, right? And then all of a sudden delirium happens where they are experiencing sounds and strange ways, and they're not connecting with reality as we know it. So in order to avoid that, the things that you can do are, of course, if you can stay with your loved one, if you can help the people who are coming in to move as calmly, as slowly as possible, soothing voices, explain what they're doing, get down on her level, speak to her, like not have it be feeling forced. Hopefully people that come in will be trained to do that, but if not, you can help educate them on how to do that to help the transition. And then if you can stay with your loved one as much as possible. When you arrive at the hospital, in the room where you're going to be, if you can request a quiet room, if you can request as little disruption as possible, and make it clear to the medical team that your priority is sleep and quiet, as opposed to the constant monitoring that will occur. Because if it's a healthy person without dementia, they will often come in every 2 hours to monitor all of the body metrics, and that might be required. So of course, if it's required, it's required. However, sometimes it's not required, and it's just being done as a best protocol. In those situations, if you can say, my mother has dementia and it's a tendency to delirium. If we could please minimize disruptions and sounds, um, and you know, interruptions as much as possible. If we can just have all of the care team come in at one time, if I can prepare my mom before they come in, if I can introduce you, you know, anything like that where you can help your loved one feel like they're not completely out of control of what's happening around them. And then, of course, keeping sound down is really important because they are already potentially experiencing sounds in a very scary way, and trying to understand what's happening around them and not being able to really understand it. So trying to bring down any kind of stimulation just to help them be able to process what stimulation they're receiving. And then the last thing when I say about staying close in the hospital is, and this is my own personal experience, when my mom had her first visit to the hospital where she did have delirium, because we didn't know this stuff, they actually strapped her down in the bed because she was fighting everything. You know, she was trying to take out the IVs. She was lashing out. She was hitting. And so they strapped her arms down to the bed. And when I had left, and they had very kindly offered for a person who was like a volunteer in the hospital to sit with my mom so that she wasn't alone in the room. But what I didn't realize is that it would have made a big difference if I could have sat with my mom, because she knows my face. So even though this kind volunteer was sitting with my mom, it wasn't someone that my mom knew. And they also didn't know about, you know, protocol or what our wishes would be for our mom, and they weren't in any position to speak up or advocate for our mother because they were not family. But if I had been there, or one of my sisters had been there, we would have been a familiar face for my mom. We also could have potentially advocated for her to not have the straps, you know, and just said, you know, wait, is there anything else we can do? Or, you know, whatever. Like maybe we could have avoided it altogether, or maybe we could have advocated for her in some way. And again, I understand these things are required sometimes, and it's a difficult situation to be in. It's a difficult disease to manage. But I do think having some tools in our toolbox and being aware of potential pitfalls, maybe we can avoid them. So I'm hoping to do that by sharing that story today. Not to scare you, but hopefully to help you avoid that. So that is that's it for my presentation. But what I wanted to do is share, if I can, a very short kind of fun video, and it also includes another tip for you with regards to the hospital. So this comes from one of our local gerontologists. His name is Dr. G, Dr. Galanos, and he gives talks around the area to help us learn about you know, not just dementia, but he talks about, you know, end of life and bereavement and aging in general, and, you know, all sorts of things. But he's kind of a funny guy too. He's great, and he put together what he calls a rap about Foley catheters. So a Foley catheter, I let him explain, but it is something that is put into the urethra to help urination. And it's considered to be a very high risk for infection, and it's also very uncomfortable. So when it comes to someone with dementia, those are the kinds of things you want to avoid, because they are not, it's not essential. It's kind of one of those things that's a protocol that somebody may do automatically, but it isn't required, and it can be very uncomfortable, and it can feel very invasive, and can be an agitator that can set someone off in the wrong direction. So if I can do this, I will try one more time to switch my screen, and with any luck, we will get to play. Okay, so there it is. And now if I go,
Catheter is anybody, not,
you can hear this.
so it's a catheter that goes to the urethra into the bladder, and then they take it to your leg. There's various things. So Foley catheters have been associated with very much infection in the bladder, and also infection has been associated very much with confusion and delirium. So one of the things that geriatricians is advocate for no Foleys. And so I made up a rabbit. So I'll give you a sample, okay? And this is why you're going to think this was a worthwhile night. So, my name is Dr. G. I like the elderly. The house staff Foley is my biggest enemy. So don't put it in. It's a one-way street. You think you're doing something, really, you ain't. Peace out.
So that was just a little fun.
Hey, it's Brian from Samcart, and I've been testing something recently that I think you're going to find.
If I can. So just to wrap up, that was my presentation for organizing for caregiving. So just to wrap up, we covered files, papers, binders. I talked about creating just a basic mom box and just throw stuff in there until you're ready to organize it, but you know where it is. And then creating a mom binder, and I'm using the mom journals, and something that you can grab and go and carry with you. I talked about medicine and record keeping and using like a health minder journal. I talked about the vial of life, which you can keep in the freezer. And then I talked about preparing a hospital bag that you can keep by the door. Then we looked at the third category of organization, which was care partners. So organizing all of the people that are going to be involved in your care for your loved one, which can be your own family, and you're managing communication among your family, as well as any facilities or medical team people that you're working with that are partnering with you, as well as maybe additional hired care like we had to bring in as my mom progressed. So I talked about creating an About Me book that is something that can celebrate things about your loved one and not only help other people to know your loved one, but can also be something that your loved one can maybe reference and recognize things and be comforted by and be proud of. We talked about using name tags and maybe even having a set of name tags that you have pre-made ready to go, just in case you get put into a circus like we did with so many different people coming in and out of a room that we couldn't keep track, and having name tags to help make that simpler. And then we talked about the fourth category of organization, which was the house. And I just shared some of my favorite tips, which were looking at the Home Fit Guide by the AARP, and I'll put the link below, and removing the rugs, anything that could trip or fall or move, catch a toe, you want to remove those things. And then having no sharp edges, so either removing things that have sharp edges or even just patting them so that they won't catch that gentle skin as it's going by. And I also talked about using colored duct tape. I'm all about trying to create hacks, things that can be done, that we can do that don't require significant brain power or significant money. So colored duct tape was my solution. So, taking bright colors of different, that signify different things, and covering key items, whether it's in the bathroom or in the kitchen or in the closet, but having kind of things that have been labeled with bright colors, big picture, maybe pictures, maybe some big lettering to help your loved ones to stay as independent as possible for as long as possible, which is what we want. And then I talked about having a locked drawer in the house somewhere to protect key things. Then we talked about two special circumstances of travel and emergency. And in travel, talked about having a diaper bag, just like we do with young people, that we would carry with us, and that we can keep some essential items, some snacks, some water, some extra diapers, and extra medicine, and maybe some kind of comforting thing, maybe a fuzzy blanket or a fuzzy animal, anything that might help to de-escalate a situation if there is agitation occurring. And then in emergency, we talked about not only bringing the hospital bag, but also trying to manage the transition, trying to have yourself organized so that when the emergency occurs, you can focus on your loved one, right? So you have your hospital bag there ready to go. You know you have what you need, so you can focus your attention on your loved one and on managing the activity that's occurring around your loved one and help them get to the hospital or to the facility where they need attention as quickly and as safely as possible. Then if they are going to be in a facility, if they're going to be in a room, in a hospital room where there is activity going on, to try to advocate for them and request for, reduced stimulation. So quiet room, lower lights, lower activity, less disruptions, less interruptions, less monitoring if possible. And then just that you yourself try to stay close because you are so key to your loved one. And I know that can be really hard for us, but it's true. We are the familiar face. We are the comfort. We are the one thing that they may know when everything else is going crazy around them. All these people, these lights, these sounds, what's happening. And I know you. I know you. So being able to be that face, be that presence for them is really important and may be able to prevent the delirium from occurring. And then, of course, Dr. G, who mentioned, just say no to Foley catheters. So that was it for my class number 2. As a reminder, I do have 7 parts of this series, and I just put it together based on my experience from my mom, with the hope that some of my experience may be helpful for some of you. I would love to invite conversation and hear your thoughts. Has this been helpful to you? Do you have other suggestions, other questions? Please let me know. And I will be back at 5 o'clock Eastern, so in about 1 hour. I will come back again today, and I'll be talking about how to identify your gaps. So this is really kind of a question to help you think about, where are you and your family and the dementia landscape? It's so broad. There are so many different ways it can show up, and there can be hard to know, like, do I fit into this category? Am I here? Am I there? How severe am I? Like, what do I need to think about in the next 6 months, year, 5 years? Like, what am I doing? Where am I? So what we're going to be looking at in the 5 o'clock chat is kind of some tools around that. Like, how do you identify what are the stages of dementia and where you might fall? And what are your circumstances where you might be most vulnerable, so that you can focus your attention on those areas and not worry about some of the others. So thank you so much for being here, and it really means a lot to me. I am really grateful to be able to share this stuff with you, and I know that my mom would be happy as well. So I hope you have a great rest of your afternoon, and if you're watching this in a recording, I hope you have a great day, whatever time of day it is, or night. And please do share comments, because that's what this is all about, is having conversation and supporting each other. So take care, everybody.